I decided I'd just use the bathroom at whatever restaurant we went to because I figured they'd have a nice one there and I was looking forward to getting a clean warm towel to dry my hands. Why, thank you, sir. But when I asked Mum where we were going for dinner, I got some very bad news. Mum said we wouldn't be going out at all on this trip. She said that Grandma always made home-cooked meals on family vacations and we were gonna carry on that tradition. Personally, I think family traditions are a little overrated. Just because you do something once doesn't mean you should keep doing it. And the only tradition we've ever had is when Mimo used to make everyone put their pants on their heads during Easter brunch. And we all thought it was a little wacky, but Mimo was raised in the old country and we figured that was a custom where she grew up. But after a while, Mimo started doing other goofy things like wearing her underwear over her clothes and we realized she was starting to lose her marbles. I'm also not a big fan of eating together as a family. If caveman clans ate at the same time, our ancestors never would have made it out of the Stone Age. The other thing caveman did right was that they only ate after a big hunt, and I'd much rather do it like that than have to eat 3 meals a day. Burp! While I'm on the subject, there are a few other things I'd change around meals. First of all, I'd have a rule where no one is allowed to talk to you while you're eating because my mum always decides to tell me the thing I need to when I'm in the middle of eating my cereal. Crunch, crunch, crunch. And after you're done rinsing your bowl, I want you to start the dishwashing and make sure there isn't any syrup on the plates. Plus, I don't like to be touched while I'm eating. I can totally understand why dogs snap at people who bother them while they're trying to enjoy their food. Mum said we were gonna have spaghetti and garlic bread, and the grown-ups got to work making the meal, but the kitchen was tiny and there was way too many bodies for such a tight space. Plus, with a pot of water boiling on the stove and the oven going, it's got super hot in the kitchen, so everyone was all sweaty, even though we just showered. Everybody had a different way of doing things and different ideas about how to handle food. Aunt accidentally spilled a whole box of spaghetti on the floor, so Mum said we were gonna have to throw it out. But Aunt Gretchen said the boiling water would kill the germs from the floor, and Aunt Kiki agreed. That turned into a giant argument, and while that was happening, the garlic bread got burnt. Mum said two things by putting a new pot of water on the stove to boil, and said they could put the flour noodles in that one. Aunt Kiki said the way you know spaghetti is being cooked long enough by throwing it against the wall to see if it sticks. I don't think Mum was crazy about that approach either, so she set up a third pot for the wall noodles. Mum and her sisters weren't the only ones who had strong opinions about food. Vincent works in a fancy restaurant and he kept testing the sauce to see if it needed any spices. But Vincent kept putting the spoon in his mouth and then back in the pot, so I decided I'd skip the sauce. Slurp! Mum told me that Vincent is a sommelier, which is a person who knows a lot about wine. She said when Vincent is testing a glass of wine, takes a sip, swishes in its mouth and spits it out. I had no idea there were people who do that kind of thing, and if you can get a job as a taco sommelier, I know exactly what I'm doing for a living. Before the trip, Grandma cooked a batch of her meatballs and sent them along in a cooler. But instead of putting all the meatballs in one big plastic bag, Grandma sent individual bags for each person. And you knew exactly how much Grandma likes you by how many meatballs you got. I felt bad for Vincent, who didn't get a bag since he's not officially in the family. And I guess Aunt Cakey isn't the type of person who likes to share. Aunt Audra didn't get any meatballs either, but that's because she's a vegetarian. And if cows ever learn to speak English, I'm sure I'll become a vegetarian too. What you got in the bag, Greg? Aunt Audra is a real serious about healthy eating, and she always makes the rest of us read the labels on our packaged food. She says if you can't pronounce the ingredients, you shouldn't eat them. Butylated hydrox and isol, propylaparin, monosodium glutamate. Aunt Audra says that instead of listing the numbers of calories on the package of preceded food, what they should really do is tell you how much eating it will shorten your life. But if I knew that eating a candy bar would take 3 minutes off my life, I'm not sure I'd let that stop me. He's thinking, worth it. After dinner was ready, we squeezed together at the kitchen table and ate our meal. Dinner conversation started off pleasant, but went downhill pretty fast. Aunt Gretchen talked about politics and everybody had something to say. Thankfully, Mum stepped in before things went off the rails. Mum started a list of safe topics that wouldn't cause any arguments, and everybody wrote one down on a piece of paper. And even though the topics were ominous, it wasn't that hard to figure out which one came from Aunt Cakey. Flowers, romance novels, turtles, pets, television, fashion, pop music, the time Susan stole Cakey's boyfriend when they were teenagers. Mum and Aunt Cakey launched right into a fight. It's something that happened. Apparently, Aunt Cakey was dating a lifeguard she met one summer, but then Mum snagged him for herself. So it finally had an answer to the question of why Aunt Cakey and Mum don't get along.